Welcome in to Bet the Edge, the college football takeover. I'm Brad Thomas here with Eric Fronton and Vaughn Delzell. This is brought to you by BetMGM Sportsbooks. All of the homies, for those listening at home, are dressed up. I'm Mr. Cowboy. I think Vaughn's Bowser, and the Lucha Libre is Eric Fronton. We're excited for another great week of college football. Vaughn, any takeaways from last week that you kind of want to highlight?
Woo! Yes, I do, Brad. Takeaway, I'm back. 10 games we talked about on the show. We won 9 of those picks. I'm feeling pretty good, but I do got to give a shout out today to my one true love, Princess Peach.
Oh, what a mic drop, Mr. Froton. How's it going? How was your week last week?
Si, senor.
All right. With that said, let's just get right into the first game. We have Ohio State traveling to Penn State. The Buckeyes are a 3.5-point favorite. Total set at 45.5. Game of the week, game of the season for Penn State, at least. Ohio State had theirs against Oregon. I'll kick things off. I'm going with Mr. Will Howard. Will Howard's actually been pretty phenomenal. His passing total is 228.5. And I think you have to take the over. 17, almost 1,800 yards on the season so far, 17 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. I'm not much of a narrative guy, but if you were to play a narrative, this is one that you absolutely could get behind. Will Howard was said, I'm stoked. I can't wait. It's going to be a homecoming for me. I grew up a Penn State fan. I wanted to go there my whole life. They didn't think I was good enough. But I guess we'll see next week if I was. He's just been playing phenomenal. Against Oregon, probably the stiffest competition they had this season, 326 yards, 80% completion percentage, 74% completion percentage on the season. Man, you gotta like what he brings to the table. But another reason why I'm taking this, besides just Mr. Howard by himself, is the lack of run game that this team is kind of facing, right? They're going to play against a Penn State team that is really, really good against the run. They're second in the country in stuff rate and defensive yard lines allowed, and 4th in defensive success rate. So I think there's going to be a lot of throwing it. And I also do get a little worried about the injuries to the offensive line. Josh Simmons is out. This game has a lot of question marks, so I can't take a spread or a total in this. Vaughn, do you have a play on the spread or the total?
Yeah, so I don't know what happened with my connection there. I think our producer is a Mario or Luigi fan, and he wasn't having what I had to say. But to be honest with you, Eric, you remember going to Penn State last year when they welcomed Michigan in. What happened in that game? See, I love that answer. What happened in that game was Penn State scored first. They kicked a field goal, drove all the way down, but they couldn't convert in the red zone. I have a sprinkle for this game, a ladder that you're going to absolutely love later in the show. But I think the best bet in this game is on the total. The total was 51.5 as a look ahead, all the way down to 45.5. I like the first half under 23.5. Penn State has struggled in the past 4 games. They've only scored 7 or fewer points in 3 of those 4 games. The lone over came against UCLA in the first half. Ohio State just played 2 very tough games against Oregon and Nebraska, now on the road in Happy Valley. I think it's going to be a low-scoring first half. Brad, you shared a great stat earlier with us via our group text about Penn State's second half defense. Elite, similar to Michigan of last year. So I do think this game goes under in general. And I'm glad that I also got cut out because I was going to sing Jack Black's Peaches lyrics to his song, but I saved you guys all ear bleed. So what do you like, Eric?
Not that lead, Brad, Peaches was not Jack Black, my friend. Peaches was Presidents of the United States of America. So good call. But, when it comes to 90s rock, look no further. That being said, with Penn State, the big issue we're talking about right now is, will Drew Aller play? And while it was a knee issue, he apparently wanted to go back in the game, but was held out for precautionary reasons, which kind of bodes well for what might be his availability. In his stead, Bo Pribulus, pronounced like Nebula, was pretty good. And 88th percentile PFF offensive grade thus far this year, has a 7-to-1 career touchdown interception ratio, and also has 7 rushing touchdowns. He is at 6'2", 205, the more nimble of the two. The dual threat. He comes in the rushing situations to take out Aller, and very well could be the quarterback here today. He was excellent against Wisconsin, but here we are. This is Ohio State. As far as other aspects of this game, I think I'm interested in. Penn State has cruised through the first half. I mean, they're 7-0. The closest game was a 33-30 comeback victory over USC. They rank third in success rate, eighth in EPA per play, but they're also 92nd in yards per successful play and 81st in explosiveness. So how will that be affected by Pribula's presence here? I've got a couple of plays that I'm going with. I know I haven't talked about our friends over there at Ohio State, but Carnell Tate, last week was on the show, gave him out as one of my ladder plays, hit very nicely at 101 and a touchdown last week. Currently, he opened at 34.5 on his receiving yardage total, which I hit. It is now up to 40.5, which you can find it there at a month, even a little higher than that in some places. He plays every single snap out there with Jeremiah Smith and with Emeka Egbuka. Nobody else, no other wide receiver takes a single snap all game, especially in these important games. And I do think that they're going to have to throw a little bit in order to be competitive against Penn State. If I'm going with the game, I'm leaning Penn State getting the 3.5 points, provided Aller plays. But otherwise, I do still think, once again, Tyler Warren is being listed at 4.5 receptions. Dude, I don't know what we're going to get when it ends up coming on the domestics, but at minus 151 on Sleeper, even at 1.5 to 1 odds, that's still excellent. I think that probably gets up to 170, and it should be at 5. Because he caught 7 out of 8 last game, 17 out of 20 of the game before. And if we get the backup QB, he's going to have to be locked on to those simple, quick shots. I watched every throw Pribula made last game. 3 receptions of his 3 of his completions went to Ty Warren. 2 of them were on a design play where he cuts behind, sort of drags across the formation and gets a little pitch pass that goes up the middle. He got that twice in the second half from Pribula. I think they're going to be forcing it to Warren at 4.5 receptions again. I just can't believe they're leaving it that low. Even at minus 151, I think that's a slam.
He's got, 24 receptions in the past 2 games? I mean, it's insane.
Like anytime Eric touts him, he's going over.
Yeah, but I love that. Kudos to you on the Tate pick last week. I have a quick story to tell of that, Eric. Because we did hit our Friday night first touchdown score bet, USC. Brad lit up the USC game too with Woody Marks. And then I had that parlay of Quinshon Judkins' first touchdown. On that drive, I literally looked at my girlfriend. I'm like, Tate's going to score the first touchdown. And I should have just rode with Eric. And he does. I could have had a 90-1 parlay instead of a 30-1 parlay in my pocket. So, but Tate certainly looked good. Yep. They're working him back into the mix. So I love the play.
Yeah, this game's interesting too. I know we haven't talked about this yet, but Ryan Day 0-4 against top 5 teams since 2022, and James Franklin 0-10 against top 5 teams since 2016. I do lean Penn State though, just taking the points there. I think their pass rush is going to be able to get to Ohio State. Like what's his name? Zen Mikowski didn't look good coming in for Simmons. So just a lean there for me. But let's get into the next game, a game where I was excited to see that I'm on the same angle as Mr. Eric Froton. That's Louisville at number 11, Clemson. Spread is 11.5 in favor of Clemson. Total set at 62.5. I went with Cade Klubnik and the total at 277.5 for the over. This is one of those games where I knew what I was betting before the lines came out. I said anything 285 or lower, I'm taking. I was excited. There's games that you kind of circle on your calendar. This is one of them. I circled last week and I was wrong. I wasn't super excited because no one's ever super excited about betting Tommy Castellanos. But for as bad as that game script was for a pro passing game, if you bet Tommy at his opening number, you hit. If you bet him later, you missed. I mean, it's 190. He missed that. He was so close to hitting when they had positive game script the entire time. But I really have to keep fading this Louisville passing defense. 80th in defensive success rate against the drop back. The quarterbacks they faced that have absolutely killed them so far: Cam Ward, 319, Anthony Condolara, 279, Kevin Jennings of SMU, 281, and Haynes King, 312. Outside of Cam Ward, none of these are like prolific passers, right? Well, now we have Cade Klubnik, who has actually like balled out this season. First and foremost, they throw the ball a ton. Second in rush rate over expected, which means they're throwing the ball the second most in the country. He has 13 big time throws, only 5 turnover worthy passes. Much like the angle we took a couple weeks ago, he has a 9.7 ADOT with an adjusted completion percentage of 77.5%. He's passing the ball a ton, 30 plus passing attempts in 4 straight games. I got to take him back games at 300 plus. I like this number. I just have to fade this Louisville defense as well.
Eric,
you want to follow up?
I'll take it,
I know
boys.
I mean, this is your play too. What are you doing, Eric? Dreaming about nachos and what over there?
Absolutely. We'll go with Kate. Yeah, I'm with Caleb Kluminik as well. 308 yards against UVA last week, against Wake 309. And I was playing against Louisville, who, as Brad had mentioned, a terrible secondary this year. Currently ranked 132nd in interception rate, too. So it's not like they're making anybody pay for throwing against them. 109th in passing explosiveness. And on the other side, their run defense is real good. 31st in stuff rate, got a 23% stuff rate. I mean, that's excellent. And then, rushing success rate, 44th. So they're certainly credible in this imbalanced defense with Klubnik and Clemson just rocking and rolling. TJ Moore, talented freshman receiver, has entered the starting lineup. Jake Brittingstool, tight end. I just think everything points to Clemson being able to do anything they want in the air, and that's where they have the advantage against Louisville.
Yeah, I'm actually in the same, but I think it's going to be an over type of game for a lot of players here, especially on the Clemson side. The total, I think, speaks to what Clemson could do offensively here. I mean, we've seen them put up huge games already, and in the past month or so, 6 weeks, they've really picked up their play, I think. So I'm with you guys. I would, hop on the train and make this a squad ride, but the last time we did this with Carson Beck, we were let down terribly. So I'm going to let you guys have this moment, let the viewers win some money. But I do like that look a lot.
I will say this. With Carson Beck, we got everything we wanted. The dude threw the ball 40 times in the game. He just couldn't complete a pass. So, I mean, this game's exciting from a betting perspective. You're taking props. The line moved a ton, almost 3-4 points in favor of Clemson. This will be their first winning record team that they've playing so far. So we'll see how they adjust. Night game, tough environment for Louisville. Let's move over to the next game. Florida at number 2, Georgia. The world's largest, tailgate, cocktail party? One of the
cocktail party, my friend.
Cocktail party. I should know that as a Florida guy. The Bulldogs 16.5 point favorite. The total set at 52.5. If they believe this, they're going to move this game. Yeah, they're going to move this game to Atlanta for 1 year and then move it to Tampa another year. I think while they do the renovations to the Jacksonville Stadium there. But I'm just taking the revenge angle. You got to, right? I said I'm not a narrative guy, and so far in the show, I've given out 2 narrative plays. I'm taking Trevor Etienne over 72.5 rushing yards. So the Gators, 121st in rush D success, 70th in power success on D. They're allowing 181 rushing yards per game, 70% stuff rate against the run. I faded Etienne in their last game when they played again, or 2 weeks ago when they played against Texas, but it looks like they kind of figured it out. 87 yards on 19 carries against a really stout Texas run D was really good. But when you even look at this number of 72.5, even though he hasn't been running effectively, he's gone over in 4 of the 6 games that he's played so far. Now he's playing against a really, really poor Florida team. As for the spread, I feel like you have to take the Gators plus the 16.5. Georgia hasn't been covering all that much, and the Gators haven't been terrible. They just haven't been good, right? Like, big difference. They're not just getting marched off the field. I think they've been good enough, better than expectation. Vaughn, do you have any plays for this game?
Yeah, I like your look a lot with ETN. I mean, Travis right now letting down everybody's fantasy squads, but Trevor, he's been a baller the past few weeks. I mean, it's a situation too, like you said, the narrative. He gets to play his former team, the Florida Gators, where he transferred from. He scored 6 of his 7 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. And he had a hat trick last week against Texas. So he's got to feel pretty good coming off a bye week now. And you got to figure the coaching staff probably preps them to get him involved very early in this game and get him very confident, get the team confident. So when I looked at this, I like some sprinkles. Something I was going to talk about the ladders too, but ETN to score the first touchdown of the game, which I think is a very strong possibility. He's the favorite. That's plus 300 odds. Him to score 2 touchdowns is plus 140. He's done that too the last 3 games coming off a bye week as well. So I think they do get him in the mix very early, Brad. I think he does go over his rushing total, and I think that he's a good bet on the ladder as well if you want to get involved there. What say you, Eric?
Man, Florida threw 14 passes last game against Kentucky, completed 8 of them with DJ Lagway, true freshman QB, leading the way there. He's still very much getting his feet wet here, but gosh, even though they completed only 8 passes, threw for 279 yards.
Yeah.
So they were just, I mean, it's pretty clear what Florida wants to do. They want to gas it up. They want to throw it downfield and try to stress this Georgia defense. It didn't work particularly well for Texas, as we saw last time out. But as we're looking here, Eugene Wilson, 48.5 receiving yards. Elijah Badger, 35.5. Chimeri DK, 42.5. With Wilson, he was more of the short ADOT target last year. And he had like around a 5.5 yard ADOT, which would bode well in theory for them getting the ball. But man, you just don't. I don't know what to kind of project. I think they'll be throwing a lot more, obviously, since they will be in a chasing script. Because of that, I kind of like these pretty reasonable, over-unders, simply because I think we'll be in a chase situation. I've given out Chimeri DK a couple of times. He's been very good to me. I'm going to go with a lean on DK's over 42.5 receiving yards, since they're going to have to be playing catch up and they throw deep. He is their deep threat.
All right. Well, let's move over into the next segment. But before I do, I want to let you know the world's fastest thoroughbreds come together this weekend in Del Mar to compete for the title of world champions at the Breeders' Cup. Catch the action from Southern California on Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. Man, I've missed horse racing. I haven't bet on horses in quite some time.
Dude, I live right down the street from Del Mar. Can I talk to the somebody about
some
getting
content?
passes to this?
Yeah, you gotta do some content while
shoot
you're
on
out
over
there.
there.
But you have to do it in the mask. You have to do it in the mask.
Yeah, obviously. I'm not going to go there without the mask. Shoot content. Nobody wants to see me without the mask.
Let's get into ladder plays. Eric, kick us off with your first play and tell me what you love about Avery Johnson.
Well, with Avery Johnson, what I like is reasonable lines. And lo and behold, that's exactly what we have with Mr. Johnson. Sensational, a redshirt freshman over there for Kansas State. And in 3 of the past 5 games, he has eclipsed 60 yards, including last game. So that's why I'm looking at this and saying, why is DraftKings giving me 3-1 odds on 60-plus rushing yards? That doesn't seem to make much sense. They're playing at Houston. Houston can barely get out of their own way. I know that Willie Fritz, over there is taking over, and they're playing slow and trying to keep that game script slow. But, man, I think you'll see at least some rushing happening from Mr. Johnson, and something that happened 3 of the past 5 times. You're going to give me 3-1 odds. I'm going to respectfully have to take that. On the other side, for a receiving line, again, there aren't many ladders out right now, so we do have to work with what we have. These selections expand as the week goes on. But 80-plus receiving yards for Evan Stewart is going to give you a plus 600. It's going to give you a 6-1 return. And then 90-plus receiving yards is going to give you an 8.5-to-1 return, plus 850. That is astronomical in 3 of the past 5 games. Again, he's gone over 90 yards. Right? He didn't do it last game. They didn't need to do anything. But again, here we are against Michigan. Against the more competitive teams, you see Stewart do well, right? Because they have to stretch the field vertically. I think you could look at that 80-plus and say, all right, 6-1 odds, fine. Give me a go.
It's kind of funny because Stewart's number is so low that he's like the perfect ladder opportunity because he's either boom or bust. And I feel like that's
exactly
what's happening.
Yeah, certainly. He has that element to him. And when he goes big and he hits bombs. So you might as well, if you're going to take an over on Stewart, just take the whole thing and get 6-1 odds. If he goes over 40 or if he goes over 80, it's pretty much the same type of a chance.
Yep. I totally agree. V Money. Kick us off with some touchdowns that you like.
Well, like I said, we're going to ride with the ETN play. First touchdown score at 3-1 odds. We hit Woody Marks last week. We're going to try and get another one here in our bag. And then we're going at plus 950. We're going to try and up Eric with his own favorite player, Tyler Warren, first touchdown in Penn State, Ohio State. Let's get it.
That's a great deal.
They would have led by 7 in the last year if they would have just threw to him in the red zone, but instead they got stuck on the 2 and kicked the field goal. So you gotta get your best weapons involved early. So I do like Tyler Warren there on that price at plus 950. And I have one more, but I'm actually gonna save it because it's the next game we talk about in Oregon, Michigan, Brad.
All right. Save it. Let's get into the next game then. I don't have any ladder plays. I looked and I didn't want to. I don't know. I didn't want to like force anything, so I felt it'd be best if I just let you guys have fun this week instead of forcing a bad bet out of me. But let's get into the next game. And we have number 1 Oregon, 14.5-point favorite, traveling to the Big House to take on Michigan. Total set at 45.5. Eric, go ahead and tell me what you like.
Dillon Gabriel opened at 365.5, and I can't believe it. I know it's Michigan, but I mean, I think we're looking too far at the name of this school, looking backwards at the magical, the magical 2023.
Was it 265 or
265?
Excuse me, what did I say? 265. It's now up to 269.5. What did I say? Oh God,
365.
365. Yeah, yeah. We'll take the under. We'll take the under. No, it's now up to 269. And even that, if you look at the past 5 games, and this is when Oregon has been in their competitive matchups here in the Big Ten, 291, 290, 341. Against Michigan State, he didn't have to do anything. He went for 257. And against UCLA, he threw for 278. I mean, he's doing it every single game. And it stops being even something that you're questioning, and it just becomes sort of a staple of our, routine. When you're going to look at it, you're going to give us a 265 now at a 269, because look, I know this is Michigan, but they allowed 283 to USC. They allowed 315 to Washington and 258 to Minnesota. Dude, if you're giving up 258 to Minnesota and Dillon Gabriel and company is riding into town as the number 1 team, like, I'm not afraid here. I'm not concerned about this. Give me that over at 267, 269.5, whatever, either one of those numbers. I feel like that's a great shot.
I'm actually on the exact same play. And when I saw this stat come out, it just reminded me of kind of what we talked about last year. I mean, early at the beginning of the season, the stat was like Dillon Gabriel leading the nation in completion percentage of all qualified quarterbacks. And we talked about this like our very first episode when we talked about the difference between Bo Nix and Dillon Gabriel. Bo Nix, really efficient. Dillon Gabriel, the guy who likes to take bombs. But it's actually, they kind of built him into their system. They give him opportunities to throw it deep, obviously, right? He has, I believe he has like 8 big time throws, maybe 9 big time throws, not a ton, right? But he's very, very efficient, and has a lot of yardage on the season. He's averaging 296 yards per game with a completion percentage of 76, right? Like, it's fantastic. ADOT's obviously not as high as Klubnik's, right? At the 6.9, but it's still very high. Also, we talk about Michigan. You said it best, Eric. We get so hung up on the name. In my notes, I said, not the same secondary as before. If you go and you break this game by game and you look at just their coverage grades, poor coverage grades against Washington, Illinois, and Michigan State. Against Will Rogers and USC, they threw for 283 and Will Rogers threw for 271, and then USC threw for 283 and Miller Moss. Like, this is a game that absolutely he can just have success, right? And what's funny about this team too, I was like, I knew their covering wasn't that good before I even looked up the stats, but I was alarmed when I went and looked. I had them in my own numbers. I had them about 19th. And this is also why, like, I'm doing it by myself versus a computer. PFF doesn't even have them in their top 20 in coverage grades. And so you kind of have to just take Dillon Gabriel and just expect that if he doesn't go over, it's because this is just a game where it's out of hand and he stops throwing. But even when they played against Purdue and the game got really out of hand, he still went over the 280 mark. So I like Dillon Gabriel in this one. Vaughn, do you have any plays for this game?
Yeah, so I'm looking at, if we're talking about Michigan here, because we just talked about Michigan's defense a lot, and I'll say one thing about them is in the red zone this year, they've allowed 11 passing touchdowns to 6 rushing. So that secondary, absolutely not the same as before. But the Michigan offense isn't either. I mean, they are so ground dependent. They are so one-dimensional. And when you do talk about the passing attack, you take out Colson Loveland, they can't do anything else besides get the ball to him. So This is a Michigan team that I think can be stopped very easily by the Oregon Ducks. That team total 14.5. We rode that Michigan defensive team total all last year. I think you fade Michigan's offense in this game at home against Oregon. But if we're talking about some longer shots or some lunch money guys, I think Jordan James is a guy I could get involved in here to score 2 touchdowns at plus 210. Scoring the first touchdowns plus 280. That's a very short number for a running back in college football. But the only thing that scares me is Tez Johnson is an absolute beast out there wide out. He can get that first touchdown because him and Jordan James are the guys scoring the first and second touchdowns almost every single game this year for the Ducks. So I was looking at some, plus money plays here, but I'm just waiting for that Davis Warren interception line.
Well, yeah, I did want to mention that too. Davis Warren's interception line did come out yesterday. And not only did it come out, Caesars gave it to us at minus 151, which is an astounding value for the Davis Warren interception. Yeah. Even though he didn't throw an interception last game, in his previous 3 games, he threw 3, 2, and 1 interceptions. They messed that one up pretty badly. I went and hit that with a baseball bat. It's been taken down. I apologize to everybody out there. I couldn't wait. I got greedy. I couldn't help it. But dude, it came out at 151. It hit a couple times, went up to minus 180, and now here we are. Sincerely hope that Sleeper or Caesars or FanDuel or somebody will be kind enough to give us that line again. I hope it comes.
Yeah, I don't think we will from the major sports books here and the legal states. But how do you guys feel about Davis Warren over under 0.5 passing touchdowns? Will he throw one? You're getting plus 118 for the under. That's something I kind of like too.
Whoa, you're getting a plus 118 on the under?
Yeah, no touchdown pass for
maybe
Warren.
Maybe he throws one. He could throw one.
You throw one,
but
plus 118.
If you give me 1.2 to 1, God, I'll take that. Yeah,
all right.
Why not? All
right. What's funny is like you guys were like talking about his interception. I was like trying to find a way where I can rationally believe that he's going to go over his passing total. Right? It's
130. 129.5.
Yeah.
I took a quick speculative under on that 129.5. I did.
You were the one who moved it to 125.5.
Oh, I probably did again. Yeah. The problem is with that is just the likelihood that they'll be down. Being a one-dimensional offense, and the fact that Jack Tuttle has now retired.
Yep.
He was the only one who can throw a forward pass. If they're going to go with Alex Orji, they're just giving up on the pass game. We've seen it. We know that he cannot throw a forward pass. So it's a dangerous proposition. You're just going to go one-dimensional offense and trying to play catch-up against Oregon. So the fact that I do think that he probably stays in for the game means there is a path for that over 130, only because of volume, nothing to do with performance-related reasons.
Yeah. That's what all it would be like. It's just like when Alex Orji played against, who was it, Texas? Like he wasn't having success, but he had the throw late in the game because they were getting destroyed.
Yeah. I want to ask one final question. This is kind of a shout out to everyone that listened to us last year, the last 2 years, because we were always on these unders. What's worse this year, in your guys' opinion? The Michigan quarterback room, or last year or the year before that Iowa's quarterback room?
I still got to go with the majestic Iowa room.
Yeah, I got to go with Iowa.
Yeah.
Of Alex Padilla and Spencer Petras.
It's not. I mean, it's not as bad as Petras and company, but it's pretty bad.
Legends. Those are player props, All-Americans you're talking about here.
Yeah, they were so one-dimensional too. Like at least when they put like Alex Orji in for Michigan, they at least can run the ball a little bit, right? Like those numbers were set at like 85, and then they were like, do we make it 75? Like that's horrible.
Yeah.
Deacon Hill, guys. Deacon Hill. Come on. None of these guys. Deacon Hill right now is, I think he's an FCS quarterback, maybe even Division II. So that tells you all I need to know. You can do not besmirch the great name of the unders of that Iowa quarterback room, please.
Deacon Hill's at Utah Tech right now.
Legend.
Probably having the time of his life.
I love Deacon Hill.
All right, let's get into the next game. We have another undefeated team here. Number 13, Indiana, 7.5-point favorite, traveling to East Lansing to take on Michigan State. Total set at 51.5. Kickoff at 3:30 on Saturday on Peacock. Mr. Froton, give us a pair of props that you like for this game.
Man, I cannot believe we're seeing Justice Ellison at 16.5 rushing yards again. He had like 24 carries last game. He ripped 100 yards. I mean, he's beaten 60 each of the past 3-4 games, and you're gonna throw it out there again. I'm sorry, I beat it up. It's up to 65.5 now. I just checked. That being said, that's still a great line. We have to hop on this. That Indiana run game last game, because Taven Jackson was the QB. They didn't want to put him into harm's way. They just beat the heck out of that Washington defensive front. And now you're going to tell me that you're going to go up there against Michigan State, and Michigan State's going to stop them? No way. Justice Ellison, 65.5 rushing yards. I absolutely love it. I also think you can reasonably take a speculative under, if you would like to, on K'Ron Lynch-Adams, 42.5 rushing yards. He had been, it's been him and Nate, dog the whole way. And last week, he absolutely got marginalized. Nate was getting all the carries. K'Ron Lynch-Adams, 42.5 rushing yards. I think he's been relegated to the 1B status against Indiana's stout run defense already, where they're probably going to have to be behind. I just don't think that you're going to be able to get enough carries to necessitate that rushing over. Along those same lines, I wanted every reason to take that Childs under 208.5 passing yards. But if you look at the Indiana defense, they'll give up the passing yards because they're beating everyone so bad that in the second half, the other teams just have to throw. So even though I'm looking for every reason to get that 208.5 under, I just feel like this is going to be out of hand enough where the run gets abandoned. So I'm going to chill on the Childs for that one.
I was going to be on Indiana -7. I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do here, because I feel as a smart better, if I take Indiana -7 and Curtis Rourke gets announced in, I'm going to have to take Michigan State on the other side, right? Just because the line's going to go nuts. He's he's one of the popular players now. Everyone's talking about this Indiana team. They're going to take a lot of money in, but then I don't want to sit here on a 7 and then they say we're going with Taven Jackson, and then the number gets to 6.5, 6, and I'm like, well, now I'm under the touchdown, and I'm not praying for push protection. But this is a good Indiana team, number 1 in offensive success rate, 3rd in the drop back, 3rd in the run, 1st in the drop back here against a team in Michigan State that just turns the ball over. If you look at net field position, they're 115th in the country, and it's not because they're not having success. It's because they're giving the ball away and giving good field position to the teams that they're playing against. They're not scoring as well. Net points per drive on offense, they're 114th. Not good, right? This team surprisingly 4-4. I actually saw a text message that that came through earlier today on my phone. They were like, Brad, you got to take Michigan State to pull off the upset, right? And I was trying to find realistic ways or realistic reasons why I would take them, right? That's if Taven Jackson's in the game, right? Taven Jackson's in the game, and they're just going to have to rely on Justice Ellison, and they're going up against a team that's 19th in defensive success rate against the run, which is really, really good, right? Like you look at their explosiveness, they're really explosive. They create a lot of havoc in that front 7, but I just think that the offense for Indiana is just that much better. So for me, I'm going to lean Indiana -7 right now. I genuinely believe that Curtis Rourke is going to play, and you'll see that number go up more.
Yeah, I don't think it's the obvious spot to be backing Indiana to lose here. I mean, they're going to lose to Ohio State in 2 weeks. That is the probably only loss that's going to be on their schedule, in my opinion. I mean, they're getting Michigan at home. We just talked about Michigan too much, so we don't need to spend time on them there. But I think Indiana is a better team than more of these teams in the Big Ten that we give them credit for. And it's because they're coaching. It's because they got all these transfers that were stars at other schools who are juniors and seniors, and they really bought into the program. But I think, Brad, if you don't want to lay the spread right now because it's now at 7.5, obviously more of an MSU number, Indiana first quarter could be a good look for you, my friend. They have beat down everybody. 7 out of 8 games they've led in the first quarter of this season. Obviously, they had a good showing without Rourke last week, but if you're going to give them 2 possessions, I think they do go and score Michigan State. Whether or not the Spartans score is the question. But if you're lucky enough to have those team totals for quarters, Indiana team total over 6.5. I mean, why would you not play that? They've done it almost every single game this season, 7 out of 8. And I just think that continues here with Cignetti and company, no matter who's at quarterback, because they can run the ball so efficiently. So I like Indiana here. I mean, I'm going to use them here in our people's parlay on the money line. So obviously I wasn't confident enough to use them on the spread. But I do think with the Rourke news, we maybe get a better number on the spread if he's not in. So that's why I didn't take them, Brad.
Vaughn, I like your angle. This is only their second time of the season against a FBS team where they're a 7-point or more favorite. They did cover the last time.
Nebraska,
I think this
right?
team is just like really good against teams that are not as good as them, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, you look at who they play. I mean, the last 4 weeks, man, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, like they prove that they are much better than all those teams, but none of those teams are that good. You know, Nebraska's a good team. I think Nebraska's a good team, but they got a freshman quarterback and they walked into a moment they weren't ready for. So I just do think Indiana may be a little overvalued, but they're definitely a much better team and probably more than a touchdown favorite should be than Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good value. And only giving away 7 in the hook here for that team. I don't know. They've been rolling everyone. How do you
rolling?
I don't see how you can at least take Michigan State. I don't see how you can do it.
Nah, it's gotta be Illinois or bust. Indiana or bust. Let's get to the next game. Wisconsin at number 4. Against Iowa, number 4. I was talking crazy. Maybe this is year 2030 and Iowa is number 4, but no, they're a 4-point favorite is what I meant to say. Total at 41.5. This is the NBC game of the week, 7:30 p.m. on NBC. Mr. Froton, any leans or any action in this game?
Yeah, this is an interesting game, obviously. And with Wisconsin, one of the least explosive Power 4 programs, rank 128th in yards per successful play, 127th in explosiveness. But they run the ball well. And Tawee Walker, Oklahoma transfer, is a big reason for it. They're 30th in EPA per rush. But, man, Braden Locke, as we know, the Braden Locke interception, as it has become known nowadays. I actually just checked the odds on that. It's only available at Sleeper. At least is listed, unlike Davis Warren. Currently at -239 for the Braden Locke interception. Whoa. So congratulations to everybody who got it -150 last week, which is as good as it gets, and it was in Davis Warren territory. But that ship has sailed, everybody. The gig is up. That being said, with Wisconsin, 114th and 20+ yard plays, just they cannot stretch the field. Defensively, not very good against the run. 77th in EPA per rush, 92nd in yards per contact. And against Iowa, where Caleb Johnson is just tearing every defensive part that they run against. They're 3rd in yards after contact, 5th in rushing success rate, for Iowa. I just think it's a tough matchup on both sides because both teams can run the ball. Unfortunately, Iowa, this defense, not defending the run well either. 103rd in rushing success rate allowed. 132nd in stuff rate. That's almost impossible to think of a Iowa rush defense doing this. I think we got a close call here with both teams have the same strengths and the same weaknesses. I'm going to take the 4 points with Wisconsin as a lean. Not heavy on it, but gosh, I just feel like they can keep this close.
I actually wrote about this game on NBCSports.com. If you guys want to go there to check out more information to help you with your wagers. Anyways, I actually wrote about this game and I leaned Wisco as well, right? Like time and time again this season, we've talked about Iowa not being the same defense that they were before. Them being 104th in the country in rush D success is bad, really, really bad. And that's, since Braden Locke took over for Tyler Van Dyke, that's what this team wanted to do, right? Like they had the 2-headed monster in Malusi and Walker, then lose Malusi to the season. And now Walker's like, you know what? Give me the action. I will run the ball, ripping off 70 a game, 80 a game since he's been this full-time starter. I just don't trust this Iowa offense. Now they're going to be starting Brennan Sullivan over Spencer Petras. I think in my article I wrote something.
Close. I inserted Spencer Petras in your mind earlier. That's
we are
just naming off bad quarterbacks.
Literally.
How many are there? Right.
You
named 5 so far for Iowa. Gosh.
We're thinking about last year, but like Iowa, they normally just need to be okay, like adequate, but their offense is really anemic. Last week against Northwestern was a little bit of a game that they over exceeded expectations. So I lean Wisconsin in this. Vaughn, do you have any leans or plays for this game?
Yeah, I'd like to point out that in the touchdown market, Brennan Sullivan has the third best odds to score a touchdown. So I don't think points are going to be scored here at all, unless there's going to be a tush
Very
push
nice.
situation. But I did like Eric's breakdown of these teams kind of are counteracting each other in a lot of ways, and they can mirror each other. That's why I like the under. And I made a prediction, Brad, when we were doing our betted in a minute segments this week.
Yep.
But I said this is going to be the game where it goes under for the total. And then every game for the regular season, I was going under the rest of the way. It's not because Kate McNamara was that good and it's a drop off now with Sullivan. It's just a situation where they're pretty much figured out, in my opinion. Iowa, their season, I'm not saying it's over, but it's going to start dwindling out the window here. And I think teams are going to play them tough. Iowa's defense, I think, will look a little better here at home, stopping the run here, but that's not saying much since they rank 103rd, like Eric says. So I like the under here. I think both teams offensively won't have much going, and the touchdown market really shows that with Caleb Johnson, the only guy with minus odds to score a touchdown.
Let's move to the next game. Minnesota traveling to number 24, Illinois. Wow, Minnesota -3 as the favorite. Total set at 45.5. Night game. Night game in Champaign. That sounds like a party or a rap song. I lean Illinois in this one. I just feel like the wrong team's favored, and I don't have a lot of data to back it up, right? It's just one of those gut feelings. Night game, Illinois. You trust Luke Altmaier to get the job done. Yeah, I know Minnesota's been playing some really good football, but for me, I just think I have to take Illinois. I'm leaning it. I'm not trying to put any real dollars on this. I don't know if any of you guys have any actual money on this. Eric, do you have any money on this game yet?
I don't, but it's Minnesota's 6-2 against the spread. They've won their last 3 games. I mean, offensively, they're bottom 10 in yards per successful play and explosiveness. I mean, 132nd in pass explosive. That's brutal, but they're 9th in completion rate, right? I mean, somehow Max Brosman is completing 69% of his passes, which, man, props, Mr. Max Bro. Defensively, they've been excellent. I mean, this is the classic Minnesota. Elite pass D, 8th in EPA per dropback, top 10 in yards per successful play and explosiveness overall. And then on the other side with Illinois, only 2 losses are to Penn State and Oregon, right? But close wins over Purdue. Might have probably lost that one. Nebraska, Kansas. It's like even their wins, they haven't been particularly impressive. And their run offense, not good. 89th in rushing success rate, 89th in yards after contact. And their run D is brutal. 131st in rushing success rate. If you told me that before the season, oh yeah, Illinois is going to have the 131 rush D, it would have blown me away. But their defense in general hasn't been good. 97th in passing success rate too. I just feel like everything points to Minnesota. I don't have any plays on it, but Illinois has been kind of a paper tiger, and I feel like this is where the chickens really come home to roost against a team that isn't an elite team that finally takes them out. I just can't do Illinois here, and I can't wait for the Daniel Jackson receiving yards prop to come out because he's the only one they throw to, and against this Illinois pass D, I think he lights them up.
Yeah, I think that if we were going to be most surprised by quarterbacks that have outplayed our predictions or what we thought they would be doing this season, Curtis Rourke wasn't one of them because we knew he was a good quarterback. But Luke Altmaier and Max Brosmer certainly exceeded expectations for a lot of people, including myself this year. This could be simply an over game, guys. I mean, it's a low total, but I think both quarterbacks can move the ball. They've been very good at completing passes. I think both coaches here, Bill Munfleck, are great culture tradition guys that also can script out plays. They've seen each other enough times already. Illinois has actually won 3 straight meetings against Minnesota. And what more does a senior want from Minnesota than to finally get that first win against Illinois in their crib on a night game? So it's a tough situation here. I lean Illinois because it's a night home game. They've thrived as an underdog, 4-1 against the spread, but Minnesota thrives as a favorite this year, 4-0 on the money line and against the spread. So you kind of have 2 teams doing both things very well this year. And I don't know. I like the comments Eric made. He kind of opened my eyes there with the paper tiger stuff because I think Illinois is a very good program, a very good team. I think they're better than Minnesota, but something is super, super fishy about this line that opened Illinois -2.5 and now it's flipped to Minnesota -3.
Maybe they'll be rowing the boat after that. But before we get into the People's Parlay, I want to let you know Sunday Night Football heads to the Great Northern this week when Justin Jefferson and the Vikings host the Colts. NBC and Peacock will lead you to kickoff coverage starting at 7 p.m. Eastern.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
The People's Parlay. That's fine with me. I'm fine with going to the People's Parlay. Let's kick it off. First things first, Mr. Eric Froton, what's your first leg of the People's Parlay?
Oh, yeah. My first leg of this jamboree is Mississippi State -10.
Hold on, sir. I'm going to have to arrest you there. What did we tell you about taking spreads? What did we have to taking spreads? I thought we were doing money lines only.
Money lines only? No, that's cheating. That's cheating. I don't want to do money lines only. I don't want to do that. I can do my -10 because it's.
I do like betting UMass. It worked out, Brad. It worked out.
It did. I had to get Eric though because all I know is I saw his -10 come across. I don't even know the game. I just saw the spread and I was like, I gotta give him a hard time. No. Let's fade UMass. Eric, tell us why we're fading them.
Fading UMass, one, because I went to school there and I've seen the state of that program. Two, because Mississippi State quietly has been putting points on the board against some of the better SEC defenses. I mean, look at the teams they've played over the past 4 weeks: Texas, Georgia, A&M, Arkansas. Yeah. I mean, 3 of those defenses are top 15 units, and heck, they put up 25 against Arkansas, put 24 against A&M, 31 against Georgia. And now you're going to throw a sacrificial lamb like UMass is going to be trotting into their neck of the woods, and you're going to expect them to take it easy on UMass after they've been getting thumped by the SEC. They can't wait to put it on this pathetic UMass defense. Sorry, Don Brown. This is a bad spot for you guys, but you're only going to give 10 points in the first half. They're going to be up 21. Yeah. 10 points. Lay it. Mississippi State, first half, they will be destroying UMass.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there. Yeah, Mississippi State's been playing so well the past few weeks. Like, they have been in a covering machine, too. One of the quietest teams probably to be betting on and making money lately, but I think when people actually tuned into that Georgia game, they kind of eyes open to Mississippi State. But I like Indiana, as I mentioned earlier, on the money line for our People's Parlay. I'm cheating. I think that they walk away with a victory here in East Lansing. I think they get a few turnovers on Childs. I think that running game looks good, and Cignetti rolls to 9-0 this season. Brad, what's your play?
I'm going USC money line against Washington, and it's not a steep money line. It's about -130 wherever you look around. And I think the books are kind of protective over USC because of the success or lack thereof that they've had on the road this season. They can't make USC a 5-point favorite. You got to make it like 3 because money's going to come in on Washington, because this game very well could end with USC winning by 1 or 2 points. But we have to remember USC's lack of success has really came when they've gone cross country, not when they're playing on the same coast. I'm taking USC. Also, the numbers are inflated for Washington. Washington 4th in the country in pass success, right? Like, who have they played that can throw the football? Like, legitimately. They played against Indiana, but there was no Curtis Rourke. They played against Iowa, played against Michigan, Rutgers, Northwestern, Washington State, and Eastern Michigan. Like, it's not a list of guys who you're really afraid of. So I don't think that number's a little inflated. I like USC. So the People's Parlay this week, $10 pays 43.10. We have to win this week or we're going to be in the negative. But I like everyone's plays equally. So I'll just give them to you one more time. That's Mississippi State -10 in the first half against UMass. USC moneyline at Washington. Indiana moneyline at Michigan State. Let's move over to our favorite bets of the week. I actually don't have any additional bets. So I'll let Vaughn, you go first, and then you can kick it to Eric. And then when you guys are done with that, you can kick it back to me, and I'll tell you my best bet of the week.
All right. I got one additional bet here that I want to talk about because I actually had fun handicapping this game, which I did not expect. I did not want to cap this game for our Bet in a Minute segments, Brad. Purdue and Northwestern. This game is absolutely a tough one to handicap, but when I looked at the numbers, something really stuck out to me. The first quarter over-under is 9.5 for this game. Not 7.5, not 6.5, but 9.5. So that, of course, made me want to look at the under. When you look at Northwestern, and it was only involved in one game all season with more than 7 points scored in the first quarter. But when I looked at it more, man, coming off a bye week, Purdue's coming off a bye week. They did look terrible against Oregon, but they looked so good against Illinois the week before with their new OC. And you're getting a Northwestern team that will absolutely, in my opinion, be able to move the ball a few times on Purdue, a defense for the Boilermakers that doesn't throw much at you. I'm actually taking the first quarter over 9.5 in Northwestern Purdue. This is arguably the ugliest bet I've taken all season, but I'm actually excited for this one, Eric. So that's all I got until the best bet. What do you got?
All right, I guess I'll fire off a few. Jabrae Barber, wide receiver, Texas A&M. He's at 34.5 receiving yards. I assume by the time this is out, this will be lower, but he's only cracked 28 yards once all season out of 8 games. It was 2 games ago against Mississippi State, the aforementioned, which was just a complete shootout because that's what Mississippi State does. It breeds shootouts. I mean, it takes a lot to get Texas A&M out there firing the ball around, especially with Marcel Reed at quarterback. So with Reed looking like he's going to probably take most of the snaps, I know that he's splitting snaps with Wegman. I still think that after we saw with Wegman, we can't trust him. 34.5 receiving yards for Barber is just flagrant. Give me that under. Next, another A&M player. A couple of them a little too high for my taste. Amari Daniels, RB2 behind Le'Veon Moss, is at 48.5 rushing yards. Okay, yeah, fine. He beat that last week. It's the only time he's beaten it all year. And again, you're going to throw him up there? I don't understand. He's an RB2. Le'Veon Moss is the clear running back one, and he's up there at 85 yards. I don't understand. Maybe he goes and he does it again twice in a row. I'm willing to pay the price to find out. Under 48.5 rushing yards. A great deal. Henry Parrish, Ole Miss, running back. Here's another one. Here's another doozy. We got a few unders here going today. Listed at 69.5. I think he's at 67.5 right now. He's ticked down a little bit. Man, Ulysses Bentley is back. They barely were able to run the ball last game, Ole Miss. And I don't think they're going to be particularly looking at Henry Parrish as the bell cow any further. You know, you've got Bentley back, and they're a throw-first team. At 69.5 yards, you come in, we're close to that. He barely cracked 40 last game. And you're going to put him 69.5. In fact, the last 2 games, he hasn't even cracked 50 yards. So throwing up there at 67.5, it's just too much. I have to take the under on Henry Parrish, running back, Ole Miss.
Let's get into the best bets of the week. I'm going to defend my 7-2 record with USC moneyline. It's my favorite one. Last week I was on BYU, and I went to the game. For the first time since 2017, I did not watch Alabama play football. It was the first time since 2017, and everyone asked, "You're going to go watch the Knights get whooped?" I said, absolutely. The amount of money that I have on BYU, I'm going to go see it in person, and it was fantastic to watch. I'm sorry for the fellow alumni there, but this week I'm going with USC for similar reasons. It's just the line is too low, and it's a playable number.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I was very scared to get involved with BYU UCF last week. I saw that there was the latest in the season that a ranked team of their degree or whatever was an underdog or whatever on the road, and it was like some crazy stat, and it didn't even matter, Brad. You ruled through once again, so keep that coming home for us. I'm going to try and pick it up here. Okay, I got a win last week. I'm going to make it back-to-back here. Pitt versus SMU. Everyone is on the Panthers plus 7.5, but that's not where I'm going. First quarter, over 13.5. I love this play because SMU is coming home after being on the road three straight games, mixing around a bye week. They haven't played at home since September 28th. That's over an entire month ago. Their defense is probably going to be a little lackluster, but they'll be scripted on offense. And while Pitt is undefeated, they've been great. They're a team that scores in the first quarter routinely. Almost every single game this year, they have scored in the first quarter. I think it happens again here. So over 13.5 points between Pitt and SMU. Not much defense happens in that one. Eric, what's your best bet so you can get the 7-3 on the season? Fire.
Yeah, let's roll with that. Absolutely. I'm liking Justice for Ellison. I talked about a little bit about Indiana there before, but last game, 29 carries, 123 yards. Previous game against Nebraska, 9 for 105. Previous game before that, Northwestern, 14 for 68. He opened at 60.5. He's at 65.5. He's cleared that each of the last 3 games. And if you expect me to be concerned about Michigan State stopping that streak, I'm not. Get ready for 7-3. Best bet, Justice Ellison over 65.5 rushing yards. And that's coming from this mask, just so you know, I want to get this in, courtesy of NFL Deporte, ESPN Deportes, NFL Spanish announcer Mauricio Gutierrez. And this is none other than El Matematico, the mathematician. That's whose mask this is. So you have to listen to El Matematico for his best bet.
Man, I don't know what to say after that. I feel like we gotta absolutely end it. This was fun. As always, don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those of you watching us on our NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to subscribe and rate us. Also a reminder to find all of your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to Amazon.com/NBC Sports. For Eric Froton and Vaughn Delzell, I'm Brad Thomas.
For El
El
Matematico.
El Matico, happy
I love you,
Halloween.
Mario. I hate you. Okay, bye.